Hello, this is Jim Smith, Strategic Account Manager for Corteva AgriScience. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the effect of growing environment on the digestibility of our forages. I'm going to go across three different points. One will be just a typical understanding of the impact of one of the parts of the growing environment, which is I'm going to concentrate today on the weather and how that affects our forages. Second, I'm going to talk a little bit about the storage environment that these forages are under and try to look at that and its effect on digestibility. And then the last thing I'm going to do is cover a few of the opportunities that we have to try and adjust for those environmental changes that our forages go through. So, why are we doing this? Bottom line, dairymen know that the quality of their forages has a direct impact on their bottom line. And dairymen and agronomists and nutritionists and everyone else that advises dairymen know that we want to optimize the output of our acres and our cows, but we also want to try to reduce the variability because we know how dairy cows respond to that. And our crops also, as I'll show you. So first, we're going to talk about the impact of weather within the growing environment. And the three that I'm going to talk about primarily are sunlight, heat, and water. In general, forage digestibility is always improved the more sunlight we have for the photosynthesis of the plants. Heat and water in the right amounts at the right time obviously are very important for the plant growth, but if we get excesses of either of those, they can be a detriment to the digestibility of our forages, especially water. And that water is going to be an important one to talk about when we talk about opportunities to try to adjust the effects of that growing environment if you have irrigation. All right, so the first set of data I'm going to show you is from Michigan. And in 2006 and 2007, Michigan State had a silage plot where they had 23 hybrids that they planted, the same exact hybrids in the same exact plot from one year to the next. And in 2006, it was considered a wet year. 2007, a dry year. And if you look at the data, you can see that all 23 hybrids experienced an improvement in their NDF digestibility in 2007 over 2006. The highest digestible fiber was a BMR. As you can see, it stood out from the rest. But even in the dry year, almost half of the non-BMR hybrids had as high or higher NDF digestibility than the BMR in the wet year. So pretty startling the impact that moisture had. The second set of data that I have you looking at here is also from Michigan. In 2009, Dan Bollinger did a really nice study, so to speak, where he took the very same hybrid and planted it in 14 different locations throughout the state, just to show the incredible impact that growing environment has on the effects for a single genetic hybrid. You can see the differences it had in tonnage, in starch, and in fiber digestibility. Same hybrid, just different growing environments throughout the same state in the same year. Okay? And the third study I want to show you was done in 2011 in LaSalle, Colorado, where we had 4 different hybrids, 1 BMR, the other 3 non-BMRs. We looked at how much water was applied to the crop and also did differing populations. And we looked at the effect that each of those things had on the fiber digestibility. Obviously, the genetics had an impact. The BMR was significantly different than the non-BMRs for fiber digestibility. When we looked at the water, going from restrained to moderate to excess, again, a very significant difference in fiber digestibility for all hybrids. As we increased the water, the fiber digestibility came down. And in regards to plant populations, we saw no significant differences. Okay, so second point I'm going to touch on briefly is the impact of storage. And the first point that I need to make on this is that in regards to fiber digestibility, the time in storage has no effect on improving the fiber digestibility of a corn silage. But when it comes to starch, it certainly does. The first set of data you see here, Pioneer tracked for corn silage and for high moisture corn over 5 years, 2002 to 2006, showed the change in fiber digestibility over that time frame. And you can see with corn silage, and leveled off at about 6 months as measured by the amount of soluble protein in the silage. The high moisture corn, though, you can see it continued to go up and up and up for an entire year. That's one of the great things. A lot of people, when they open up their silos, if they can, they've had it there for about 6 months on their corn silage, and that starch degradability is probably pretty close to what it was on the corn silage they just got through feeding from the previous year. The next set of data that I want to show you was in Nebraska, where they took high moisture corn at different levels of moisture, from dry rolled to 24 to 28 to 30 and 35% moisture. And except for the dry rolled, you can also see in here on the in situ dry matter digestibility, it continued to increase for the entire year, and even past 280 days it continued to increase, especially on the wetter corn. So again, that's something that we track all the time when we're working with dairies to try to make sure that everybody's accounting for that change in digestibility of the starch. And again, very well measured through the amount of soluble protein in that product. So the last thing I'm going to cover is maybe some opportunities that we have to adjust for that fiber digestibility and starch digestibility that we've got in our products, but especially fiber. So the first point of it is we have to know our inventories, not only from a quality standpoint, but from a quantity standpoint, so that we're able to make sure that we've got good carryover, that we've got that opportunity for the silage maybe to sit in the silo for 6 months to where that starch degradability is fairly equal to what you've been feeding, so there's not a big adjustment for the cows. Second thing is, this is where we get into trying to adjust for it. When we get into that silage cutting time, just prior to that, I'm promoting that we go out, get samples early, good representative samples in a field of the hybrid, and also at normal chop height, and then samples at a high chop height, say 12 inches higher. Because this is one way that if we need to, we can adjust for that fiber digestibility. But obviously, we're going to leave product in the field, and we have to know our inventory so that we don't cut ourselves short on tons. All right, so again, one piece of information I want you to look at here real quickly is a summary of 11 studies done by Penn State that shows the difference between normal chop height and high chop height. And it was about 8 inches compared to 20. And in those 11 trials, there was about a 2 to 3 point starch improvement for the high chop and about a 2 to 4 point improvement for the NDF digestibility. But you can also count on leaving about 300 pounds of as-fed silage in the field for every inch that you move up in that high chop. The other opportunity that we've got besides high chop is if you do have irrigated corn silage, we know that that amount of water, if that we restrict it somewhat during that pre-tassel phase, that we can directly impact fiber digestibility for the good. When you're going out and taking these samples, sending them in for analysis, you need to benchmark that yearly. In other words, every year, do it as close as you can to the same field. If you can, have the same hybrid year over year. So if you know you're going to have to switch, try to take a second sample of a hybrid that you know you're going to have the next year from a near proximity at the same maturity, approximately 2 weeks before silage time. Send those in. Keep track of it year over year. Try to eliminate as many variables as you can by using the same hybrid in the same field at the same maturity pre-silage. So, again, trying to understand the impact of growing environment, understand the opportunities to adjust for that. So in summary, we've gone through understanding the impact of weather on fiber digestibility, a little bit around the impact of storage time on the rate of starch availability, and then also maybe a few things that we can do from management perspectives to try to benchmark our fiber digestibility year over year that can give us the opportunities to perhaps go out and contract for byproducts that we need to complement our forages, contract grain that we may need since we're short on starch potentially, or that we have the opportunity to maybe go out and even contract other forages, alfalfa, whatever it may be, to complement our corn silage and its digestibility. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed this bit around grow from our plant grow, harvest, store, and feed silage zone efforts.
That concludes this Pioneer Growing Point Agronomy video podcast. Visit our page on pioneer.com and follow us on Twitter and Facebook for more agronomy insights.